this is Allie Edwards, and welcome to another video where I'm using the Rainbow Scrapbook Kit as the jumping off point for some projects. This is the last video for this week. I think I had 6 projects total using pieces from the Rainbow Kit. I still have lots left over, so you'll probably see me using these in other projects, upcoming projects, over the course of the next few months as well. Today I am going to do, for my last Rainbow Kit project during this week, is I really wanted to play with something with this particular paper. In the kit there is a 6x8 page too that looks like this, where you could easily just punch the holes and add in content on there. We did one in a 12x12 version too, but what I want to do here is I want to cut these out and use them on white cardstock. And what I've done already is a couple things. One is I decided to do a story just about some photos of Simon and I, selfies that we've taken together since the beginning of this year. And I punched these to 2.5. So in Photoshop, I cropped them to a 2.5 by 2.5 square, and then I am using my circle punch to just punch these out. And my idea here, again, is that I will, let's see if we can get that guy, be cutting these out and then spreading them across a 2-page spread in some way or another. The other thing that I did with this one is I took a transparency and I decided to print a series of circles on them. These say, "Love you so much, always and forever." And I have this file available for you guys on my blog if you click over to the link that corresponds with this particular video. And I'm gonna cut that out so that each one of these will also have a circle or a text-based circle around it. This is printing on transparency, and I did a recent video that shows you how I print on transparency using the printers that I have here. So a couple things I need to do first of all is simply get my photos cropped. I don't know how I'm going to tackle the journaling or exactly what I want to say yet. There's enough circles here that I will have one that can be journaling there, and then we'll just kind of see how this one evolves, just like what always happens with my projects. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive right in. All right, I really had fun putting this one together once it got going. First step obviously is going to be cutting out the watercolor circles there. And when I cut these out, I was totally not cutting them out perfectly. Like, I'm just kind of going around the outside edge. I wanted them to have a little bit of the border, and so I was able to have that from the pattern paper, and then I'm basically just kind of generally cutting around them. And I do the same thing with the transparency. So I'm not trying to make it perfect. I don't feel like they have to fit exactly. Some of them are a little short, or they only cover parts of it. Like, all of that, I was totally fine with that. So if you dive into this one and you feel like it's getting too specific, or you're trying to make it too perfect, you might want to let go a little bit of that. But what you can see here in the process is essentially me just cutting those out, cutting out each one of the watercolor circles there, and then cutting out the printable text circle there. And that's really the first step, is just getting that all set up. All right, after I got all those watercolor circles cut out, you saw that I also cut out one of the other pattern papers because I knew that I needed to have one that was going to be my title. And as I was thinking about that a little bit, I was like, you know what I really want is a different shape. I think I want to bring in a little bit of shape variety rather than having the circles. And I knew I had this watercolor heart from the March Stories by the Month kit. So I decided to go in and add that in as the home for some kind of title. Right at this point in the process, I'm not really sure. The other thing that I noticed as I was putting this together, I was like, you know what, I want to spread out the cool colors a little bit, I just, for whatever reason, wanted that red to come over on the other side. Now that I'm looking at it and rewatching it back in the video, like obviously it doesn't really matter. I don't think it's that big of a deal. And if you really want it to be rainbow all the way across, you can do that too. I did end up printing out another photo because I wanted a 6th photo, and then also knowing that I wanted to have my journaling on top of one of the circles. So I chose to put it on top of the purple one. Could have been on a lighter one. That would have been fine too. I set this up in Illustrator. In Illustrator, it's really easy to do text inside of a circle. That's actually one of the videos that I have that I had requested recently, was to do text inside of a circle and I think text outside of a circle in Photoshop. And so I have that on my list of things to do coming up in the future. But for this one, I was just able to flow text right into inside of a circle shape, print it out on the transparency just like I did the other ones, and then I have a nice layer on top. You could absolutely print directly on the pattern paper or directly on those circles if that was something that you wanted to do too. In my case, I think it was just easy especially since I'd already done some with the outline, those outline text areas, to just do one that was inside the circle. So the next step in the process for me here is actually starting to adhere some of the things down. You can see that I'm adhering the photos down with red line tape. That's what I have again around here right now. With red line tape, and I'm adhering those directly onto the transparency, and then I'm using the tiny attacher to staple the transparency onto that background watercolor piece, and then I'm picking up my scissors and I'm trimming around the excess. Again, this is that spot where I was talking about before, where I'm not trying to make it perfect, right? These circles are not perfect. They have wonderfully wonky edges on them, and so I just went ahead and ran with that. Now, as I'm starting to kind of lay these out or do some of the production piece of bringing this together, I was thinking a little bit about overlap, and that one of the things that I really liked about this one as I was working on it was that by having those layers with the transparency on it, it allowed me the opportunity to layer things in different ways. Like if you look at my text block there, where my journaling is, I'm able to lift that up because it's only stapled in one place. I'm able to lift it up and put it on top of the other circle, and so I can play around a little bit with that. I definitely liked having the circles touching each other and having them come together. So a lot of times when I do repeated shapes like this, I will spread them apart and they'll be more on a grid. And this time I definitely they were like big enough that they could overlap each other. One of the big questions that I had for myself, and I took some of this out of the video because I went for a long time of trying to figure out if I wanted to put stuff in the middle, right, where the holes are punched. Did I want to add embellishments there? Did I want to put chipboard there? I did a whole bunch of thinking about that and then bag it in the end. So FYI, that's the end result. But what I'm looking for right now as I'm going into my little embroidery boxes there is I'm looking for additional embellishments to add on here. I'm looking for something to put onto the circle onto that watercolor heart for my title. And then I'm also just kind of seeing, are there other things that I have here in my stash that would work really well for this particular project? One of the things that I've been trying to do a lot recently, and I've done this especially with the projects this week, is diving back into my stash. Like in addition to whatever the brand new thing is I'm working with, right? Here's the brand new rainbow scrapbook kit. In addition to that, what are things in my stash that might work really well for this story? One of the things I pulled out there was a felt ampersand that had stitching on it. And then this was another chipboard piece. I actually ended up not going with this. Looking at it now, I love how it looks. It was like the perfect colors. But I ended up with a different chipboard embellishment on top that says "The story has my heart." So as always, lots and lots of different things could work for any of these projects. I'm just showing you a variety of different ideas and some of the things that I think through, knowing that, you know, like this isn't a right answer or a wrong answer kind of thing. So just kind of going through, playing a little bit, pulling things out, looking at the different sentiments that are on some of the past chipboard pieces, just thinking through that kind of stuff, seeing is there something that might make a lot of sense with this particular story. This is the one that I ended up added on there. It's a hexagon shape, and it says, "This story has my heart." So as I was going through, I used some glue dots for adhering these things down. I kind of wanted to just temporarily adhere it a little bit. The glue dots are more than temporary, and it works just fine for that, but I kind of wanted to just get things down in place so that I could start to build on top of it. So you can see that on that heart that I cut out, I did use foam adhesive. It's one of my favorites for adding dimension into my projects. Went ahead and did that, and then I used the glue dots for the rest of the circles, and those ended up being the only adhesive that I ended up using on those, which was totally fine. So I'm getting those things back down in place there, and considering like this is a point in the process where I could totally and easily be done, right? I could say, okay, this is good enough. I've got my main elements in place there, and do I need anything else, right? That's always the question. I always get to a certain point in my process where I'm like, do I need to add anything else on here? And this is where I started thinking like, maybe I want to have a couple circles that connect these two pages together. Sometimes when I have something across a 2-page spread, I'm like, maybe I would like to have something on there. It didn't need to be a photo, didn't need to have text, but I considered adding pattern paper circles on there, and I cut up a few of them, and this is another one of those things where I went back and forth multiple times and then decided to bag it. But those are some of the sorts of things that come up for me. Again, no right or wrong answer, right? You can just decide. And so here's where I dove back into chipboard. And I was considering adding a bunch of little circle chipboards on there. And then I was looking at the half circle chipboard pieces that I have from a variety of different past kits. And I was like, oh, these might work perfectly to add on to the edge. And so I looked through those, and I had 4 that worked just right, including one of the ones that I added on here. It says my first, which is perfect for a story about Simon as my first kid. But it's from the first story kit, which was literally the first story kit, and it was the theme of first, which is taking us back a long time ago now, but really fun to be able to bring that out. So again, looking at your embellishments, looking at the things in your stash and saying, am I likely to use this at some point or another? Something that said my first, like I knew that I could probably use that at some point or another, but I really like how these half circles, it was like just a great opportunity to use some of the ones that I had in my stash. And here's again is another look at how I was kind of thinking maybe I would put a bunch of different chipboard pieces in the middle, and again, going back and forth and just trying to decide, is this, do I want to have something here or do I not? In the end, I don't. I think it could totally go either way, so it's going to be up to you if you're doing something similar. Maybe you want to have even simply having those center circles closer together, closer to the holes, that would work also. But I think, especially in looking at it in my album now, it looks totally fine. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. Again, big thank you to all of you for hanging out this week with me as I embarked on making a bunch of projects with the Rainbow Scrapbook Kit. It's been really fun to have something specific that I'm focusing on, which can tell a wide variety of different stories, right? Sometimes with the story kits where we have specific themes, I'm really diving into very focused things. And I think that it's nice for me to have one of our kits be something that can be used for all kinds of different storytelling. So as always, let me know if you guys have questions in the comments below, and we'll see you back here again soon.